I spent 5 hours and 1,800 pieces building an awesome Smilodon exhibit in Prehistoric Kingdom. I think this build has a lot of elements in it that you can use for your own parks and for a variety of species. So for that reason, I'm really excited to share this build with you, and I hope that by the end of this video you will be plenty inspired for your own Prehistoric Kingdom. At the end of this video I'll be giving a tour, of course. You don't want to miss this. I am very proud. And the magic all starts by digging a trench. I really love playing with elevation and giving guests multiple very different ways of experiencing an exhibit. And the first way, and definitely the most eye-catching way, is this glass tunnel that I'm building under the exhibit. It's not going to be entirely glass, as you can see. The walls are like concrete, but the roof is going to be made out of glass so that when guests walk through the tunnel, if they're lucky, when they look up, they'll see one of the Smilodons just crossing over from one side of the exhibit to the next. And that was really the starting idea of this entire Smilodon sanctuary, and it was actually based on this reference image. I forgot the name of the zoo that this is in, but I'll edit that in later. But this is the reference image that inspired this entire build. But of course I put my own spin on it, and particularly my own personal aesthetic, I suppose. Here I'm starting my work on the glass roof. As you can see, we can just use the curved glass roof pieces and shape and size them to match the tunnel that I've created. Of course, if you're gonna do this in your own exhibit, you can vary the width and the length of the tunnel as you see fit. I went with this. I think that's a pretty decent tunnel. It's a fair tunnel. Now, of course, what I love to do in Prehistoric Kingdom is adding lights. It is one of my favorite bits in this game, the Recolorable Lights. It puts so much atmosphere in a build. So I'm definitely, while building, also paying close attention to what something looks like when it's dark. So what I did here was, I thought that was kind of a cool idea, slightly elevating the wooden floor and then putting the lights underneath. And here I'm just testing what I look like. In hindsight, I think I placed too many lights. Maybe a couple of ivies on the white walls would break it up a little bit, make it a little bit more dark and more moody. Now I'm basically continuing the build by placing a lot of rocks to sort of hide where we had to line the concrete up with the actual elevation of the ground. Now I'm working on the next part of the build, which is like the sort of circular courtyard. It's not perfectly circular. I wanted to get away from that. It was certainly my instinct to just make everything a perfect circle, so everything in the end neatly fits together, but I moved away from that, sort of challenging myself towards slightly more difficult shapes. I definitely regretted that later on. We'll get to that. But this is going to be the second way for guests to view the Smilodon exhibit, and that is this glass wall with concrete framing. We've moved on. It's a fast pace, it's a speed build after all, we're moving fast. So what I'm doing right now is I'm using these two pieces, well technically it's four and then you're just circling them around itself to make the opening, like the staircase opening. And it really doesn't matter which size you make it, like this is quite small, but bam, with the expand tool or the resizing edit or no, scaling tool, that's what it's called. There you go, third time's a charm. I could just make it a lot bigger. Now what I'm doing here is I'm creating like the steps themselves, and I stopped rotating here. That was a big mistake, big, huge. I should have just kept going because as you can see now I have to double it over because we have stairs going up and down on either side, right? And I only made one half of it essentially. So if you are going to recreate this, don't do as I do as I say, and just rotate much further around so you have the entire steps and you also have the platform in between. And this is just, it's very satisfying to look at this, but just lowering the steps down. I will say that guests are a little finicky when it comes to stairs and steps. It's really a matter of millimeters, it feels like, which makes the difference between guests being like, oh, I can go there, and being like, oh my god, this is an insurmountable cliff. What could I possibly do? No, I can't go here. This is not within the realm of possibility. So when you are building something with stairs, just keep that in mind, that you're gonna have to either fiddle with it or perhaps even accept that guests won't necessarily use it the way that you intended it. But this is the opening. I'm circling like this brick pattern around it, which I thought contrasted very, very, very nicely with the light concrete. The concrete, by the way, is probably my favorite building piece. I use it for pretty much everything. Like, when in doubt, grab some concrete. I'm just fiddling with the steps a little bit. Again, they require some fiddling to work with your guests. For this part of the build, I'm not using any references, and that is both a blessing and a curse. It is a blessing in the sense that you don't feel so tied down, you don't feel so much pressure, you don't like lock up creatively when you can't make a replica of something work. The downside of it is that it is a little bit more difficult to keep the inspiration flowing and to add a lot of detail. I'm personally still like struggling with that balance in Prehistoric Kingdom of building freely but adding enough details. But I feel like with this Smilodon exhibit, I definitely, personally, in my opinion, make big strides forward with how I plan an exhibit and how I go about building it. And just like I said, getting away from the standard shapes. I was really tempted to just make the whole courtyard circular, but as you can see, the glass and concrete wall is at a bigger angle, a bigger circle than the actual courtyard. Now, this is the part where I started to regret that, because as I was expanding the stone flooring of the upper level of the courtyard, this is what I then had to do to make that fit. I had to shrink it down piece by piece to make it fit with like the outer rim. That sounds like something from Star Wars, but you know what I mean. So that was definitely very tedious. I cut out that entire bit. But that is the challenge with merging two shapes that don't perfectly line up. But I think that in the end, and that's the point I'm making in a roundabout way, that it is good to step away from the standard shapes and to challenge yourself that way, because I'm really proud of how this exhibit came out. Like overall, the exhibit itself, the guest area, I'm really happy with how it came out. I am very much aware that I am not the most skilled builder in Prehistoric Kingdom, although I will say, like awkwardly patting myself on the back, that I do think I have kind of cool ideas from time to time. But again, not the most skillful builder. But in terms of this particular build, I was just really proud of myself. And I think, personally, I do see progress in how I'm building in Prehistoric Kingdom. So that makes me more excited about the future. Initially, I will say, as much as I loved it, it was also very daunting. So I'm happy that Baby's getting her groove back, and I feel like I'm finding like my style and the balance between having fun, because it's still a game, you know, remember to have fun, but also ending up with that end result that you can be really proud of and share screenshots of. And that was definitely the case for me for this build. I 100% had a ton of fun with it, but I'm also really proud of how it turned out. Now what I'm doing here, this specific step, is adding like sort of walkways or planks to give the Smilodons an opportunity to walk over the glass wall. This step is not necessary, they'll just walk over the glass as well, but I thought it was a little bit more realistic to add those planks, and they were in a reference image as well. What we have over here is yet another way for guests to look into the exhibit, and I thought this was a really cool feature. First and foremost, it was important to have something there for it to make sense that the courtyard was circular and that they could walk all the way around. There had to be something back there other than just a full opaque closed off concrete wall. So what I did was I added that tall window in there. So guests could look down at the guests in the tunnel, essentially. So they could look down through the glass ceiling, see the guests, see the Smilodon walk over the glass ceiling. I thought that was a pretty cool feature. This is the front of the exhibit, so this is the first thing that guests are going to see when they approach the exhibit from one side. They can also approach it from the other side, of course, but theoretically this is the proper entrance of the exhibit. This step, what I did was I placed some regular fencing first, just because it helped me to determine the shape. And now I'm adding the tall actual fencing on top of that with the modular pieces. That was very tedious, so I cut out pretty much all of that. But I went all the way around the beam. This little window is going to give an opportunity to look into the nighttime habitat of the Smilodon. Again, in fitting with my philosophy of just wanting to add a lot of different viewing opportunities for our guests, for them to see the exhibit from different angles, and for them to have a chance to see the animals also display different behaviors. So, you know, we're not just seeing them walk over the glass ceiling, we're not just seeing them frolicking by the waterfall, which I'll be adding soon, but we're also just going to see them napping and lounging and all of that cute stuff that somehow makes even big murderous cats cute. For the nighttime exhibit, what I did was I sort of made a rocky cave. And of course, because we're dealing with big cats here, it was very important that the sides of this rocky formation were very straight, very steep, with not a lot of texture's the word I'm looking for, not too much texture on it, because of course then the Smilodons will be able to climb out. So that's why I flipped the flat rocks on their side, have them pointing up, and form the cave that way. And in a similar vein, I also made the rock wall for the waterfall. That also had to be very flat, so the Smilodons wouldn't be able to use it to climb out of the exhibit, logically. And also it had to be flat, of course, for the purpose of adding the waterfall. We didn't want the waterfall to be bouncing off too much rock details and stuff like that. The back of it I just filled up with regular oversized rocks. And now comes the most laid back part of building an exhibit in Prehistoric Kingdom, and that is just the environmental work. So I added the pool that the waterfall is going to dump into, with like a little creek leading up to the rocky formation by the guest tunnel. I'm adding a lot of rocks, and it's just a case of using the terrain paints and the foliage to fill up the exhibit. This is something that at the moment I probably enjoy the least in Prehistoric Kingdom, which sounds so weird because you have so many tools available to you. But for me, what I'm personally enjoying the most right now is really building structures, because that is what makes this game so vastly different from Jurassic World Evolution 2 and Jurassic World Evolution 1, which I've played for many hours. And this, even though we have a lot more tools, definitely am aware of that. I'm not glossing over that. But in terms of the work you're doing, it feels fairly similar to what we do in Jurassic World Evolution 2. So that's why I think this is one of the points where I can still definitely improve a lot, and that is with my actual exhibit work, my environmental, like, nature work. I think that's definitely something that I could spend more attention on. But really what's happening at the moment is I'm just antsy to keep building the buildings as opposed to just placing rocks. But I do place a lot of rocks. You can never have too many rocks, essentially. So the idea here is there's like this big rocky mound and these flat rocks close to the glass wall, and that's supposed to be like inviting the Smilodons to go rest there for some sunbathing. Now this is something that I think was a pretty cool addition to the Smilodon exhibit, like this big dead tree that also curves over the glass ceiling of the guest tunnel. I thought that was a pretty cool addition to make that section of the exhibit stand out that much more. That big trunk piece curves really nicely, so it just lays over the glass quite naturally, and I anchored it with rocks so it looks a little bit more realistic. What I did here was I copied over one of the walkways, one of the planks, and I crossed the river with it, thinking that it might be necessary. But it definitely wasn't, because like literally just as I had placed down that plank, I noticed the Smilodon going for the water. So I was like, oh, let's see what happens. And well, this is what happens. They are completely unbothered by the water, which is not what I was expecting, because in another exhibit, the Argentinosaurus are like, water? No thank you, we stay away from that. They will not wade through even the super shallow river that is in their enclosure. So you don't need that walkway, but I feel like in a zoo they probably would add it just to give the animals opportunity and make them as comfortable as possible. With your rock work, what I feel really helps sell it as realistic and sort of breaks it up from being too rocky, if that's even possible. I mean, can you ever have too many Dwaynes? I don't think so. But adding a ton of foliage really helps to it. So this is a fun phase, and this is the Waterfall Phase. Now, what you see me doing here is adding like these wall pieces to it, which I'm using as the backdrop of the waterfall, just to give the waterfall itself more color, really help it stand out from the rock. I will change the texture of these wall pieces later on. I thought that the vertical lines of this metal texture would sort of help with the illusion of a waterfall, but in the end the lines were too visible, so it sort of broke the illusion. So I ended up changing it to just a dark teal concrete texture, and I think that worked really well to give the waterfall more mass as opposed to just the spray waterfall effects that we have. By the way, as I'm rambling on, I am really curious to know which species you want to see me do an exhibit build for next. I haven't decided yet which one I want to do next. I will add as a little disclaimer, I'm working on something for the Torvosaurus right now, which you will have seen if you were present during our Prehistoric Kingdom livestream this weekend. So Torvosaurus is coming up as well. But I really want to ask you guys for your input. Like, what is the next creature that you want to see? Because I feel like we're on track for just doing these speed builds for every single species that's in the game at the moment. I'm certainly on board for that, and I hope you are too. So leave a suggestion in a comment down below for the next species that you want to see me make an exhibit for. And of course, if you're not subscribed yet and you want to make sure that you're around to see me make that exhibit for your favorite dinosaur or other creature that is in the game, hit the subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss anything. We are continuing work on the guest section. I'm adding a little bit more, well, it's not technically pathing, but it functions as pathing in the game. I really love this stone texture. I'm really glad that I looked a little further than I initially did. This stone texture is in the backstage category of the wall textures, or floor textures in this instance. And so I initially completely overlooked it, but I'm glad that I looked a little bit further, a little bit longer, because I really like how this matches, or complements, I should say, with the red brick pattern that we went for the circular courtyard. And now we're just adding, again, my favorite piece in the game, concrete. It's so versatile. You can use it for every single thing. And I do, basically. Now, this is probably my favorite part of the building process, and that is when you've completed like the base structure, like the big structural work, and you're just adding details to make it more realistic and bring it to life. What I really like doing is adding like little bits for plants and stuff like that, bringing in a little bit of nature to interrupt all of this concrete and stonework that you've done. And yeah, this is definitely my favorite part of building, where the thing already has a shape, it's already a thing, and you're just filling in the blanks, and you really see how everything starts to come together, and it's just so enjoyable to be working in this thing that you've created. This is really the step where everything comes together, and for that reason, it's probably one of the most important steps, maybe even more important than getting the base structure right. And it's also one of those steps where I totally recognize that I can improve myself a lot more. And I think in this regard, what I really need to do is use more references to really add that level of detail that blows me away when I look at other people's builds. But for me, you know, I'll be really happy if you look at my builds and can take some inspiration from them. So I really hope that while watching this, you are taking inspiration from my build for your own Prehistoric Kingdom parks, like, ooh, a tunnel with a glass wall, that's cool, or, oh, this double level circular courtyard is really cool, or the little window looking into the nighttime exhibit, all of that sort of stuff. I really hope that it inspires you and that you can make something even better, and something you look back on just as how I'm looking back on this, and you think to yourself, hey, I built that, and that's really cool, and that's awesome, and I'm proud of it. And maybe stop comparing yourself to other builders who are like next level. Like, I totally make the mistake, or not mistake, but I make the quote-unquote mistake of looking at like these veteran Planet Zoo park builders and then comparing that to my level. But that's really not fair to myself. I think that for a relative beginner in Prehistoric Kingdom, I'm doing okay. And like I said, it is still the most important thing, that we're having fun. So I hope that when you look at this and maybe you feel like you are even more a beginner than I am and you're thinking to yourself, I can't build stuff like that. First of all, you totally can. It's just a matter of experience. And second of all, don't put yourself down like that. It's a game. Just have fun with it. Because I see comments like that so often in my comment section where people are like, oh, that's amazing. I could never build like that. And I don't want to dishearten you. I want to inspire you and give you ideas for you to try out in your own game and just have fun with it. And as I always say, please give yourself permission to not have it be perfect, to use some of the prefabricated stuff in the game. I know that the point of the game is that you build it yourself, and that's definitely what I'm challenging myself to do as well. But you know what? After a 5-hour build, yeah, I'm gonna use the prefabricated seating sections and stuff like that, and that's okay. It's okay. This is a safe space. We can do this. Now, this is actually one of the last parts of the actual build before we get to the showcase of the exhibit, which, again, I'm very excited about. But this is like a little roof, or it's not really a roof. It provides shade for when people are standing there on a hot summer day staring at the cute Smilodons rolling in the hay. And again, we've arrived at a little building break for my favorite thing ever, which is adding the Recolorable Lights. For this particular exhibit, I went with mostly a warm yellow and then mixing that up with shades of purple and pink. You can see me testing out different colors, and I just felt like pink was a nice match with the yellow. Now, this phase is something that, it's just a little extra, but what I'm making right here is a Smilodon skull sign, which I'm gonna put over the entry point, like right before people enter the tunnel. This is something that I've done in the game when it was still in the alpha and the beta version. I made like a Tyrannosaurus skull, Styracosaurus, forgot the nasal horn like the idiot I am, Lambeosaurus, all of that stuff. I feel like it's quite easy. It's deceptively easy, honestly. If you can draw even a little bit, you can do this. And I feel like it's just a really nice, it makes for a really nice entry section to an exhibit as sort of an introduction. That being said, I do really hope that they will eventually add statues for every single species in the game, so we can add those to our entry sections. And speaking of entry sections, this is actually the entry section, and interestingly, the final thing we're going to build, and it's just this pathway leading up to the tunnel, and I figured, what did I love most about modded Jurassic World Evolution 1? Do you remember that? It was the arched rock, and I felt I missed it. I needed some arched rock back in my life, so I created it in Prehistoric Kingdom just for a little bit of oomph, a little bit of drama, and I think that overall it's a pretty fun entrance to this Smilodon sanctuary. Oh, it's a little weird. It's a little weird, but they are using it. I love it. Good. Well done, Big Kitty, well done. And here we are at the finished Smilodon Sanctuary. We're gonna go in for a quick tour. We have the Smilodon skull sign above the entry of the tunnel with its glass roof. And I've paused the game for now because I noticed that we have a surprise on the glass roof, exactly as intended. There they are. Look at that. I think that's pretty dang cool. So I guess come in here. I think I'm a little bit tall, like that. And they come into the tunnel and they just see the Smilodon walking on... well, they use the bridges sometimes, but they also just walk over the glass. But still, I think it's pretty dang cool. I mean, as a paying guest, I would be very excited to see this. So I'm gonna hit play. Oh god, oh god, oh god. There you go. Big kitty. And there's the other big kitty. I really like this. And so we move on. I'm gonna show how this all looks at nighttime as well, but I want to first show just daytime. We're gonna go through the tunnel. Let's have a look back, see if we can see anything. No. And now here we have, don't mind the Z fighting, but here we have the reveal of like the courtyard, and we have our second viewing experience into the Smilodon exhibit, which is this wall of glass over here. We're at like ground level with the Smilodons. Oh, there's someone walking through the water. Someone, something. Yeah, someone. You know what the heck, someone. And we also get a look at the beautiful, epic waterfall over there. And if we just can't handle our excitement, it just gets too much for us, we have restrooms right there. And we have this beautiful garden down here, like inside the courtyard in the lower level. But we're gonna go up the stairs to the next level and our next viewing opportunity. So, bunk. We're just walking up the stairs, you know, casually walking. We're very speedy as we walk up the stairs. So here we have the whole courtyard. We have a view from up above. Beautiful waterfall again. We also have an interesting viewing opportunity right here. Right now I'm a little short. There you go. Where we can look at, you know, down into the glass tunnel. We see a Smilodon sleeping over there, just waking up. And, you know, we'd be able to see the guests come through there. I think that's a pretty cool detail as well. And then we go over here. We can go all the way around. You can see we can look down into the courtyard like that. And we can go over here where we can actually peek into their nighttime habitat. And we have a surprise visit from a Smilodon. So this is the, oh god. She's in a hurry. Places to be, people to murder. So this is like the fourth viewing opportunity into the exhibit itself. And yeah, a lot of variation in the Smilodon experience, which I really like doing. I really like offering several different ways to look into an exhibit. This Smilodon is like on a mission. I don't know what's going on there. We have this little bit of shade, and we can come down here where I've placed a building. This is not a custom build, you know, I'm giving you and myself permission to just use some of the prefabricated stuff as well. This build was 5 hours in total, so when I reached this point I was like, you know what, I like these tables with parasols, so I'm gonna use these tables with parasols. I'm not gonna force myself to make my own. And now we're gonna actually fly up so you can see it as a whole. There you go. So there is the layout. It's sort of like an elongated curvy bean. And let's change the daytime. Oh, no, not like that. And this is like my favorite setting or time of day, when it's still light out, but the lights that you've placed have also already come on. I think that looks really, really pretty. I really like this. I am obsessed with the Recolorable Lights. But now I think it's time that we show it, like what it looks like when it's actually dark. So we're gonna turn it to midnight. Look at that one go. Raoul. Jesus, Raoul. Relax, dude. Alright, so we're gonna do like the tour in reverse, essentially. We're gonna make it quick, though. So here we are, the nighttime experience. Pink mood lighting. And again, we can look into the exhibit. The exhibit itself is also lit up. The waterfall is blue. The game is saving. Very important. We see the shadows of the Smilodon. They're black silhouettes moving through the exhibit. Very epic. And here we have this perspective down into the tunnel. And here we have the nighttime, the resting area. Now let's go down. They should add like a proper first-person mode so I don't have to like Q and E my way up and down. So here we have this perspective. I think it looks really, really, really lovely. And now we're gonna go through the tunnel again, but look at that. Nice. As you can tell, I'm quite chuffed about this entire build. The tunnel is maybe a little bit too bright for my liking. Maybe I should add some vines, some ivy to the walls, a little bit of darkness, because it's probably the white that's doing a lot of this brightness as well. So there we have it. We're gonna back it up slowly, so we can get the front of the exhibit, the entry. There's the Smilodon sign again. That sign alone, by the way, is 1,669 pieces. A lot. And the build itself is 1,800, if I recall correctly off the top of my head. And then right here is the actual entry to the Smilodon Sanctuary. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, and I hope that it also inspired you for your own builds in Prehistoric Kingdom. Thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time, enjoy the game.